Let's get ready to rumble!
What up, y'all? Welcome back to another edition of Throwdown Thursday. We got NFL, we got college football. We're going to track the election results. And most importantly, Big Ten football is back. All the haters out there that thought the football season was going to close down were absolutely wrong. The Cooties cannot stop the best team in the nation from making their championship run, getting revenge on Clemson, and bringing it home this year. Let's go. But before we start getting into Big Ten football madness, we're going to start with recapping the NFL from last week. So the Titans get the cover on the short week. Derrick Henry, in my opinion, is hands down the most dangerous running back in the league right now. Over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's looking like RoboCop running down the field. Texans showed a lot of heart in that game. That game was super close. Probably one of the best games I've seen all year. But Titans are still rolling right now. 5-0. Got the cover. So we're going to bump the Titans up a half point, and the Texans just keep falling into the abyss. Colts make a crazy comeback against the Bengals, down 3 touchdowns. Bengals pretended to be good for a little bit, but then resorted back to themselves in the second half. Zach Taylor is definitely on the clock right now. Bengals did get the cover, though, so we're going to knock down the Colts half a point, and we'll knock the Bengals up a half. Falcons finally get it together and get on the board this season, just stomping the Minnesota Vikings. Cousins threw 1 million interceptions in the first half, and that defense is bad. Falcons got the cover and an upset, so I'm going to knock them up a full point, and the Vikings are on their way back down. The Broncos kick 1,000 field goals to take down the Pats. The Pats are struggling. They're just not really that great of a team. Obviously, Bill Belichick's probably the greatest NFL coach of all time, but they just don't seem to have enough. Belichick teams typically get better throughout the season, though, so I'll be hesitant to bet against them, but probably going to just see how they turn out these next couple of weeks. Broncos, despite having all these injuries, were able to, hold down that Patriots offense. However, even though they can move the ball on offense, they can't get it in the end zone. So we'll go ahead and knock up the Broncos a point for getting the cover and the upset. Pats finally take a slide. Giants edge out a win against the Skins in one of the ugliest games I've seen so far this year. Skins went for 2 at the end for the win, so I give Rivera credit for having guts. But you should probably make sure your team's good enough to convert a 2-point conversion before you try that, right? So I had these teams even though the Skins got the cover, the Giants won, but that game pretty much was even other than the 2-point conversion. I'm just leaving them there. The Ravens take care of the Eagles. The Ravens jumped out to a huge lead at the beginning. The Eagles did a good job of fighting back, but they just can't put a complete game together. If it wasn't for Miles Sanders making a bunch of big crazy plays, they probably would have never came back. Wentz is very Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Who knows who's going to show up on any given play. Eagles did get the cover, so I'm going to go ahead and bump them up a half. And we're going to slide the Ravens down to 9. Still one of the best teams in the league. The Brownies run into a buzzsaw that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers probably have the best defense in the league. They definitely have the best pass rush in the league. And they might have the best overall complete team in the league. And they're just going to keep putting quarterbacks in the hospital. And the Brownies finally come back down to earth after looking good against the Colts. They just couldn't protect Baker. And then the offense shut down. Couldn't get a run game. So we're knocking the Browns down a half point. And the Steelers keep climbing. Bears hang tough and advance to 5-1. The Bears have to be the most surprising good team this year at 5-1. I think it still might be fraudulent. Their offense, not impressive at all, but their defense is getting it done. They're playing teams tough. The Panthers are competitive. They're not a bad team by any means. They're definitely in the middle somewhere, but they just don't have enough talent to get it done. They're missing their 2 best players. It is what it is. So with the Bears going 5-1, I have to put them above the Browns. I'm not going to put them too high. We're going to move them to 3. Panthers are going to get bumped down a half point for not getting the cover. The Lions stomped the Jaguars. So the Lions are 2-3 right now. They could have been 3-2 if they wouldn't have dropped that touchdown pass week 1 against the Bears. And the Lions have had the toughest schedule so far this year. I hope I can find them as an underdog somewhere here in the future, and I'm probably not going to bet against them. So I'm going to bump the Lions up a full point, and the Jags are just headed down. They're probably the second worst team in the league. I don't know why I don't bet against the Jets every week. I've literally been saying this for 3 weeks now. The Jets are free money. Last week I said I wouldn't drop the Jets any further unless they got blown out again, and they did. So yeah, they're just going to keep dropping a point every week that they lose by 2 touchdowns or more. Dolphins obviously look good against the Jets, but so does everybody, so I'm not going to get too carried away. We're just going to bump them up to +4. Tom Brady gives Aaron Rodgers an absolute spanking. The Packers jumped out 10-0 like they were going to control that game and they were the better team. And then Tom Brady does this thing where he goes, nah, I'm going to go ahead and take over from here. And watching Rob Gronkowski score touchdowns is like one of my favorite things in the whole entire world. I'm not going to go crazy with the Packers. I'm just going to knock them down a half point. Bucks, however, they did look really impressive. They've been banged up weeks before. I think I got to give them a point bump because they look good when they are healthy. 49ers come out of nowhere and beat a good Rams team. The Niners are like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They lose to the Eagles, they lose to the Dolphins, and they beat the Rams. Although the Rams might be fraudulent. I saw a stat while that game was on that said all 4 of the Rams wins were against the NFC East. Probably not going to lay any big lines with the Rams for right now. We need to see how they're doing. All right, so I got the Niners as the average team in the league. I have no idea what to do with them after that performance. I'm just going to give them a point bump for getting the upset like I typically would. This is a team that I wouldn't even bet if they're involved in the game. And the Rams got upset, so we're knocking them down a point. The Chiefs take care of the Bills in a rainy swamp of a game. The Chiefs hit him with the okie doke. You think Mahomes is going to throw for 1,000,000 yards, or at least try to, and then Edwards-Helaire has over 160 yards rushing. This rookie is a stud. Bills, on the other hand, they were in a tough spot. They're in a short week and had a bunch of injuries. So I think the Bills still played well. Allen was definitely a fullback in that game. He was running for more first downs than he was passing for. So with the Chiefs, I'm going to go ahead and put them back up to 10 for getting the cover. Bills, I'm not going to touch them. Again, that was a short week. They were injured. Let's wait another week before we adjust them again. I still think they're a good team. And the Cardinals take care of this poopy Dallas Cowboys team. This defense is so bad for the Cowboys. Andy Dalton had to throw over 50 times in this game. Zeke had a couple fumbles. They just don't look good. Cardinals scored a bunch of points against this defense, but so does everybody. So we're going to give the Cards a half-point bump for getting the cover. The Cowboys just look bad. I'm knocking them down another point. All right, so I went 4-3 with my picks last week. I was about to take the Titans. I was about to take the Steelers, and I pulled off at the last second. Packers completely surprised me by blowing that game. Guess I probably should have stayed off this Pats team without a really dynamic offense laying over a touchdown. And yeah, the Rams shocked me out of nowhere. I can't believe how the Niners controlled that game. Bears got it done for me. The Skins, in the most sloppy, gross way possible, got it done for me. And Patrick Mahomes is just the greatest of all time. Yeah, I said it. So I'm up to 17-16 on the year. Still staying alive. All right, let's go ahead and look at the lines for this week. All right, so here are the updated power rankings for week 7. I'm going to go ahead and leave these in the description if you'd like to refer back to them later. Let's go ahead and look at the lines for this week. We got a battle for the NFC least with the Eagles facing off against the Giants. Giants have the second worst offense in the league, while the Eagles are kind of in the middle somewhere. Both of them have average to below average defenses. Giants are still missing Shepard, obviously missing Barkley. Eagles are still missing their tackle Peters. Jackson's upgraded to probable, but Alshon Jeffrey's out. Ertz is out for 3 to 4 weeks. So the Giants are +8 and +1 for their injuries. The Eagles are +1.5, -1 for being at home, but I'm giving them a +4 for all the injuries they have. So my spread on this game are Eagles -4.5. Vegas opened this up at -5.5, then bet it down to 4.5. I don't like either of these teams. I mean, Eagles have been decent. Giants are terrible. I'm staying off this game. Next up, we got the Saints hosting the Panthers. Panthers have one of the worst offenses in the league, and the Saints have one of the best. No surprise there. Defensively, the Panthers have been pretty average. The Saints have been pretty below average in terms of total score, but their yards per play is really solid. Looks like Kewan Short is out for the season now. Eli Apple is questionable. They're missing a guard. Curtis Samuel's questionable. Janoris Jenkins is questionable for the Saints. They're missing a guard on suspension. Montgomery's still on the IR. Thomas is questionable. So I have the Panthers at +2. I'm giving them +2 for their injuries as well. I got the Saints at -6.5, -1 for being at home, -1 for coming off a bye, but then +0.5 for their injuries. And then we'll see how their injuries pan out. Some of those guys were questionable on game day. My spread for this game is -12. Vegas opened up this game at -13. Now it's anywhere between 7 to 9, depending on what book you're looking at. Yeah, Saints coming off a bye with that offense and the chance to get some of their dudes healthy. I'm going to look at that game for sure. Typically, double-digit spreads in the NFL are rough. Usually the underdog will cover those, but this year's crazy. It's 2020. Texans are hosting the Packers. Packers got the 4th best offense in the league. Houston has kind of a below average offense. They are 3 in yards per play, although I think that's just from getting garbage yards at the end of the game when they're trying to come back. And on defense, I thought the Packers defense is getting better, but they're kind of below average right now, and the Texans defense isn't good at all. Packers lost their guard for the season. The other tackles banged up. Lazard's on the IR. Texans are missing a linebacker, McKinney, and a couple other players questionable. All right, so I got the Packers at -8 and then +2 for their injuries. I got the Texans at +4, -1 for being at home, half a point though for getting their injuries. My spread on this game is -9.5. Vegas has this game at Texans +3. I'm definitely taking the Packers. Next up, we got the Jets hosting the Bills. I'm not even going to spend time analyzing this game. I don't care what the spread is. I'm taking the Bills. Next up, we got the Falcons hosting the Lions. Both teams have been average on offense. Both teams have been pretty bad on defense. The Lions have had a bunch of people on the IR that have been there, and it looks like the Falcons are missing a safety and a couple D linemen for now. So I got the Lions at +4.5 and the Falcons at +4.5. They get the bump for being at home, but then they lose it for having injuries. So this game is basically a pick'em. Vegas opened this with the Falcons -4.5, but that got bet down quick. It's anywhere from 2 to 1 in most places. I guess there's a slight edge with the Lions, but the Lions are such a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde team. I'm not putting any money on them. And I'm definitely not putting any money on this Falcons team. Next up, we got the battle for I-71. Browns have an above-average offense. Bengals have a bad offense and a slightly better but still bad defense. And the Browns, in terms of scoring, have one of the worst defenses in the league, kind of right in the middle of the pack in terms of yards per play. I mean, Myles Garrett is a game changer, so they can't be the worst defense in the league. Chubb's still on the IR. Teller is questionable, and the Bengals just have a bunch of players still in the IR. So I got the Browns at -2, and I got the Bengals at +5.5, then -1 for being at home. My spread on this game is about a touchdown. Vegas opened this game at +3. It's been up to +3.5, as if they're trying to discourage people from betting on the Browns. I mean, the Browns killed the Bengals the first week. Nobody can protect Joe Burrow from his eventual death this season, and Myles Garrett's on the other side of the line of scrimmage. I'm going with the Browns. Next up, we got the Skins hosting the Cowboys. Looks like it was at +7 for the Skins. Now it's pretty much a pick'em. Yeah, both these teams are trash, and it should be a pick'em. I'm not wasting any time on this game. Next up, we got an absolute banger. The Titans hosting the Steelers. Can somebody knock off this Titans team? Both teams have some of the best offenses in the league in terms of scoring. The Steelers have a pretty low yards per play, and I think it's just because their defense is playing so well and getting them a short field is why they're scoring so much. On defense, the Titans have actually just been average, while the Steelers have been, like I said, they're the most dangerous defense in the league, easily. Pouncey's questionable. DeCastro's questionable. Unfortunately, Bush is out for the season. That's a huge loss. Titans are missing a tackle. I got the Steelers at -7.5, then +1 for their injury to Bush, and then Titans at -5 and -1 for being at home. So I basically have this game as a pick'em. Vegas opened this game with Titans as a slight favorite, and it's pretty much at -1 right now. My gut is telling me to go with the Steelers, but I've been watching this Titans team, and Derrick Henry is an absolute monster, so I think I'm just going to enjoy this one without any juice on it. Next up, we got the Cards hosting the Seahawks. Seahawks are number 1 in scoring and number 1 in yards per play. And even though everybody's really hyped up about Murray and Hopkins, they only have the 18th best scoring offense in the league. Flip-flop on the other side of the ball, though. The Seahawks are below average on defense. And Arizona is more of a defensive team than offense, despite all the media hype around Murray and Hopkins. Josh Gordon is still out indefinitely, which is funny to see every week. Adams is questionable. Hyde is questionable. The linebacker Jones is out for the season for the Cardinals. All right, so I got the Seahawks at -7.5, -1 for coming off the bye, but +1 for their injuries. I got Cards at -1, then -1 for being at home. My spread on the game is Seahawks by 4.5. Vegas opened up this game at -2.5, and now it's moved up to -3.5. Yeah, not really too much of an edge right there. I have been cashing on Russell Wilson recently, but he wasn't able to get the cover against the Vikings, so I think I'm probably going to stay off this one. Next up, I got the Chiefs heading to Denver to face the Broncos. Surprisingly, the Chiefs only have the 9th best scoring offense in the league, but I mean, they do still have Patrick Mahomes, so that'll change. And Denver has one of the worst offenses in the league easily. Defensively, the Chiefs have been a little bit above average, though, which is surprising. And the Broncos are actually right there with them. They obviously played really good defense against the Pats last week. Okafor is questionable for the Chiefs. Watkins is still out. Taco is questionable. Gordon's questionable for the Broncos. And they got a million other people on the IR. I got the Chiefs at -10, but I got them at +1 for coming off a short week playing on Monday night. Got the Broncos at +4.5. -1 for being at home. +2 for their injuries. I got the spread of the Chiefs winning by 2 touchdowns. Vegas opened this line at only 5.5, then it's been moved up very quickly to 10. Even though my power rankings give the Chiefs an edge right here, the Chiefs, they're still good. They're probably still gonna, win the Super Bowl or whatever, but they haven't looked crazy strong right now, and I'm definitely not going to bet against Mahomes. I mean, there's better ways to lose my money. 2 of the best coaches in the league face off this week with the Pats hosting the Niners. Both teams have below average offenses. I think some of the Niners has really been due to injuries, though. And both of them have above average defenses, although scoring defense for the Pats, the yards per play is not very great. Sherman's still on the IR, Ansa's still on the IR, Mostert's on the IR, Coleman's on the IR, Solomon Thomas is still on the IR, Boza's still out for the season. Looks like the Pats have a couple linemen that are questionable. So at the Niners at -1, I don't have any extra injury points added for them. I've already factored that into their power rating. I got the Pats at -3.5, the -1 for being at home. My spread on this game is Pats by about a field goal. Vegas opened this game up with Pats as a small dog, but then they flipped it to -2 pretty much everywhere. Not much of a huge edge on this game. I think the Rams might be the most fraudulent team in the NFL, but the Pats and the Bears are probably competing for number 2. And the Niners are Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They used to be a good team with a great coach. They had a bunch of injuries, so you just don't know how well they're going to play each week. I'm going to pass on this one. Next up, we got the Chargers versus everybody's favorite Jacksonville Jaguars. Both teams have pretty bad offenses. Herbert's obviously been playing well as a rookie, but they're still not a great offensive team. Defensively, the Chargers are still pretty average, even though they've been banged up here and there, and the Jags can't stop anybody. Jags have a couple D linemen that are questionable. Chargers, Balaga's questionable. Pouncey is out for the season. Chris Harris Jr. is still on the IR. Melvin Ingram's on the IR. Keenan Allen is questionable. Eckler's still on the IR. So I got the Jags at +9. I got the Chargers at -0.5 point, and then -1 for being at home, but then +4 for all their injuries. So my spread on this game are the Chargers by 7.5. Vegas opened this line at -7. It's moved up to 7.5 or 9 anywhere. Yeah, I mean, I got pretty much the same line, so I'm going to stay off this one. I don't know about the Chargers laying all those points, especially with all these injuries, and definitely not betting on the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, holy cow. Sunday night matchup, we got the Raiders hosting the Bucks in the Battle of the Pirates. Both teams have above average offenses, although Tampa Bay has a pretty low yards per play. Defensively is what I think people are sleeping on. Tampa might be a better defensive team than they are offense right now, although they have had injuries on offense. Maybe when they're fully healthy and get things clicking, that could flip around. But regardless, they seem like a solid team. Raiders have one of the worst defenses in the NFL. They're third to last in yards per play. Fournette's questionable for the Bucks. Raiders have a bunch of randos that are questionable. So I got the Bucks at -5.5. I got the Raiders at -0.5. -1 for being at home. -1 for coming off a bye. But then +0.5 point for their injuries. My spread on the game are the Bucks -3.5. Vegas started at 3. Now it's at 3.5 pretty much everywhere. This one's spot on. Probably going to lay off of it. I would be tempted to take a home dog in this situation. This home field advantage isn't the same what it used to be. The Bucks look really good on defense, and even though the Raiders are coming off a bye, their defense can't stop anybody. And the Monday night game, the Rams hosting the Bears. All right, so the Bears have one of the worst offenses in the league, and the Rams are pretty below average on offense right now, too. On the other side of the ball, They're both two of the best defenses in the league. No new injuries for the Bears. Rams are missing a linebacker. So we got the Bears at -3. I got the Rams at -5 and then -1 for being at home. So my spread on this game is -3. Vegas opened this game with the Rams by a touchdown. It's only moved to -6. I think the Rams are fraudulent. I think the Bears might be fraudulent too. But the Bears have been cashed for me this year, so I'm taking the Bears as an underdog this week. All right, so here are the games that I like for this week. I won't necessarily take these automatically. We're going to see how these injuries play out leading up to the game. But these are like so far. Again, another week of chalk, which always makes me nervous because, well, there's always upsets. But at least I got the Bears on there for at least one dog that I feel good about. I feel like in most years in the NFL, there's a bunch of average teams that people think are really bad. But I think this year, there's just a lot of really bad teams, so there's not a lot of fun underdogs to take. All right, that's it for the NFL. Let's go ahead and take a look at these college lines. So last week in college, I went 500. I was going to take Miami, but I flipped it to Pitt at the last second, and I grabbed Kentucky at the last second as well. Bo Nix ruined my life. Arkansas is definitely an underrated team. Texas A&M either decided to play defense or Mississippi State, for whatever reason, just can't score. And I thought Georgia was going to take care of Alabama. I went against my rule. I bet against Alabama, and they burned me. That's why I have the rule in the first place. I'm an idiot. So I'm 7-13 on the year with college football. Good thing the Buckeyes are back in business so I can start covering some of these spreads. Go ahead and take a look at the most important game of the day. The Buckeyes hosting Nebraska. I don't know anything about these teams. It opened up at 12.5. It looks like it's -26 now. I don't care if it's -100. I'm taking the Buckeyes. Let's go. So Ole Miss is hosting Auburn. It started at 9.5. It's moved down to 3. I bet on Bo Nix last week and he burned me. You know, I played quarterback back in high school. I watched Division I quarterbacks nowadays and realized that I probably never stood a chance. Then I watched this dude, and he can't even throw a hitch route. I mean, I'm still paying college loans, and this dude gets a free ride. Definitely not betting on Auburn. And Ole Miss isn't very good, so I'm not betting on them either. TCU is catching 7 against Oklahoma. Oklahoma took care of Texas last week, but dropped 2 in a row to Iowa State and Kansas State before that. TCU just got beat by 7 by Kansas State, although they did beat Texas the week before. These Big 12 games are crazy. I'm probably going to stay off this one too. Michigan State's hosting Rutgers. Don't know anything about the Big 10 teams yet. We got the battle for North Carolina going on as well. Opened up at -14.5, and now it's been moved to 15.5. NC State is missing their starting quarterback, which is why the line is so big. NC State's 4-1 on the year. North Carolina was rolling until Florida State proved that they were fraudulent. Kind of inclined to take the Tar Heels because they'll probably bounce back. I mean, they do have a good team. They're definitely not a top 10 team, though. But again, I probably stay off this one, too. Louisville is hosting Florida State. The line was 6.5. Now it's moved to -5 for the Cardinals. Florida State, like we just said, got a big win against UNC last week, but they've looked like crap the rest of the year. Although the Cardinals really haven't looked much better. They dropped one to Georgia Tech, Pitt, Miami. I love watching Florida State. They got tons of athletes. They haven't looked good so far, but neither have the Cardinals. So I think the Florida State Seminoles can get it rolling again. I'm going to go ahead and take a shot on them this week getting points. Bama is a 3-touchdown favorite over the Volunteers. I'm going to wait 1 week to bet on Alabama. Just let them come off this big win against Georgia. And then I am probably betting on Bama the rest of the year until they play Ohio State. Texas opened up at 10.5 over Baylor. It's been moved to 9. So Baylor's only played 2 games this year. They lost a tough one to West Virginia a couple weeks ago, and they smoked Kansas. Texas lost a tough one to Oklahoma. Their defense cannot stop anybody. Baylor's catching a lot of points right here, and Texas really isn't that great. Ellinger's definitely a playmaker for the Longhorns, but, I mean, that's a lot of points to give up to somebody when you can't even the offense off the field with your terrible defense. I think I'm going to be looking at Baylor +9 in this one. I like the points. Oklahoma State's hosting Iowa State. Line opened up at 4. It's moved to 3.5 with Oklahoma State. Iowa State just waxed Texas Tech last week. They beat Oklahoma the week before. They beat TCU the week before. And they lost to UL Lafayette the first game of the season. Oklahoma State smashed Kansas, no surprise. They beat West Virginia and got the cover. They only won a close one against Tulsa the first week. Both teams score about 30 a game. Iowa State has the better passing offense. Oklahoma State with Chubbard has a little bit better running offense. Defensively, though, Oklahoma State is looking tough. They only give up 9 points a game. Under 100 yards rushing, under 200 yards passing. That's interesting. Maybe the teams that Oklahoma State really just aren't that impressive impressive on offense, and that's why they have such good defensive stats. But I think Iowa State is overrated every year. They have gotten some good wins recently, but it's not that big of a spread. I'm going to be looking at taking Oklahoma State. We'll see what happens on game day, though. Purdue's hosting Iowa. Pitt is catching 10.5 against Notre Dame. So Notre Dame barely got the cover against Louisville, didn't cover against Florida State, and they didn't cover against Duke. They did wax USF, though, but USF's pretty bad this year. Pitt, on the other hand, they lost a couple of close games. I thought they were bad, but then looking at it closer, they have definitely been competitive. They're better than I thought they were, and I'm glad I took them at the last second last week. I think Pitt might be slightly better than what people think, and I think Notre Dame might be slightly worse than what people think. I'm going to go ahead and take the points with Pitt this week. Yeah, Pitt's only given up less than 20 a game, only 50 yards rushing per game on defense. Pitt's a lot better than I thought they were. Indiana is hosting Penn State. LSU is hosting South Carolina. They were a 7.5 point favorites to move down to 6.5. South Carolina just took care of business against Auburn, getting the upset. They smoked Vandy. They barely got a cover against Florida, though. Last time we saw LSU, they lost to Missouri. Yeah, I think South Carolina and LSU are about even this year. So if South Carolina is getting points, I'm going to go ahead and take them. Also, it looks like their quarterback is doubtful for LSU. I think I'm liking the Cox this week. Minnesota is hosting Michigan, and Minnesota is getting points. I'm taking Minnesota. Michigan sucks. Miami is hosting Virginia. It was minus 11. Now it's minus 12.5. Virginia got worked by Wake Forest, so they're not any good. And Miami, depending on which line you got, pretty much pushed against Pitt, and I think Pitt's better than Virginia. I think I'm taking the Canes this week. SMU is hosting Cincinnati, who is a top 10 team, which is clearly fraudulent, but Cincinnati is still pretty tough. Cincinnati is undefeated. Haven't really played anybody, though. SMU beat Tulsa, didn't cover. They beat Memphis, who Memphis just beat UCF. Yeah, I think the Bearcats actually might be frauds. Well, I know they're frauds. They're clearly not a top 10 team, but this SMU team is pretty good. They're undefeated so far. It's only a 3-point spread. I think I'm going to take the Mustangs. All right, that's it for the college football lines. Let's see what else is going on in the gambling world. So I am filming this actually Wednesday night. So it looks like the Dodgers are minus a run and a half. They're minus 134 on the money line. I don't really follow baseball. I have no idea what's going on. If you want to give me a pick, go ahead and put it in the comments. When you don't know, just take the underdog. Steph Curry and Peyton Manning are facing off against Mickelson and Charles Barkley in golf. I had no idea this was going on. The only pro I see out there is Phil Mickelson. Charles Barkley's swing is probably the worst I've ever seen, but he's got to be good enough to carry. I don't know what rules they're playing, but that's an interesting bet. Curry and Manning are actually a little bit more of a favorite at minus 135. If you're really jonesing for something to bet on and you like golf, there you go. We got the Bachelorette. Will Claire Crawley marry the first runner-up? Plus 600 for yes. Will Claire marry the recipient of the final rose? Plus 185. Do the people on the Bachelorette ever marry the second place person? That doesn't make any sense. How are you going to win and then go marry the other person? That show sucks. Oh, Jesus, we have a bunch of betting lines for the next debate. What type of pattern will Trump and Biden wear for their tie? We got solid, striped, dotted, geometric pattern, novelty, tartan, paisley, or floral. I personally just go with a solid or sometimes striped tie. What color will those ties be? What will Biden say first? Come on, man, Scranton, malarkey, or inshallah? These are great. What will Trump say first? Sleepy Joe or phony Kamala? What will Trump say first? Fake news or China virus?
Why do you keep calling this the Chinese virus?
It comes from China.
And then which event will have a higher Nielsen rating, the first presidential debate or the second one? Obviously, the odds for the first one are a little bit higher. I think after watching the first one, a lot of people don't want to turn around and watch this crap again. What topic will be debated first? COVID, national security, American families, race in America, climate change, or leadership? What's Trump know about leadership? Who will take the first sip of water? Who will win the presidential debate drinking game? What's the drinking game? Tell me in the comments. Whose microphone will be muted first? Duh. Will Trump or Biden curse on air? You know, for as wild as Trump is with some of the things that he says, I am surprised that it has actually not gotten worse, or he's not just letting things fly. So it looks like 538's odds have stayed about the same, with Biden as an 87% chance to win. Biden got a slight bump after the first debate. If Trump still keeps interrupting him and acting like a Looney Tune, then it'll probably not get better for him. However, the odds in Vegas are somewhat close to even, so yeah, still go either way. I personally put a bet on Biden back in 2018. It was 18-1, so I went ahead and took him. I looked at the list of all the Democratic nominees. He was the only one that I knew, so I thought it'd be 50-50. I was getting 18-1. Why not? I personally don't care who wins the election, but I do got some skin in the game, so if Biden does edge it out, drinks on me. All right, y'all, that is it for Throwdown Thursday. Thanks for tuning in. May the gambling gods bless your picks this weekend. Have a good one.